Hello, my name is Mrs. Kipp, and I will be teaching the listening and learning for first grade. We just started the domain on animals and their habitats. We're only 2 lessons in, so I'm just going to refresh really quick what we had already learned at school. And then we will start the new lesson today, that is animals of the Sonoran Desert and their habitat. So far in this domain, we have this guy. His name's Rattenborough, and he's taking us all over the world to teach us about animals and their habitats. And his habitat is in a dirty alleyway. He lives under the steps. He eats trash out of the garbage cans, and he gets water from the pipes and the drains nearby. We learned that a habitat is a place that has food, water, and shelter for living things. We learned that to adapt means to change or adjust to a certain condition to be able to survive that environment. The habitat we learned after learning about Rattenborough's habitat was the Arctic. So we learned about polar bears and Arctic hares. This was a wolverine. We learned how they adapt by growing blubber to keep warm, or thick coats of fur to keep them warm. Polar bears have webbed feet to help them swim. Caribou travel in packs to stay safe from predators. This was an Arctic fox. He has white fur to help camouflage or blend in with his surroundings to stay safe from predators. Walruses and seals, they grow the thick blubber. And we learned that walruses actually use these tusks to grab onto the ice to pull themselves up out of the water. So that was pretty cool. And today, Rattenborough is going to take us to the Sonoran Desert, which looks like this. So, in today's lesson, we are going to explain what a habitat is. We are going to learn why living things live in habitats to which they are particularly suited. We're going to identify the characteristics of a desert habitat, and we're going to explain how desert animals have adapted to their desert habitat. And we're also going to learn how to classify animals into herbivore, carnivore, or omnivores. Now, throughout the read-alouds, I ask questions when we're in the classroom. And they'll usually turn and talk to a friend for a minute. So if you're able to follow along with your child, that would be great. If they're doing it independently, that's great too. I'll just pause so they can think about it for a minute, and then we'll go over the responses I would have been looking for. All right, let's get into this. Here is the Sonoran Desert, like I said. After nearly freezing and almost becoming a polar bear snack in the Arctic, I thought we should go somewhere where my whiskers and tail could thaw out and warm up. So I brought you to the desert. This is Rattenborough taking us all over the world, so I'm speaking for Rattenborough. There are many deserts all over the world. You know you're in a desert when it doesn't rain very much. Many deserts can also be very hot. Because it's so hot and dry, only certain types of plants and animals can live there. There's some plants that grow in the Sonoran Desert. Welcome to the Sonoran Desert in the southwestern part of the United States and northwestern part of Mexico. The temperature is quite hot during the day, and it doesn't rain very much. The heat and lack of rain make it hard for some plants and animals to live in the desert. They must all be specifically adapted to live in the hot weather and survive with very little rain. How do they do it? Some plants can save and store water inside their plant parts when it does rain. Other plants grow only in shady areas near mountains or rocks. Because there are very few plants that can be used as shelter, the animals have adapted to living in the desert, often seek shelter underground and make their homes under the sand. Living underground helps them stay cool when it gets hot and keeps them hidden from other animals that may want them for lunch. Yikes. So this is a saguaro cactus. And this looks sharp. Ouch! What did I walk into? Aha! Here's one plant that lives in the Sonoran Desert. The saguaro cactus is the world's largest cactus. Cacti don't have leaves. They have prickly spines instead, which is exactly why it hurts so much to touch this one. The word cacti is how you say more than one cactus. The incredible saguaro lives for up to 200 years. And that time it can grow as high as a house and can weigh as much as several cars. What? That's awesome. The most amazing thing about the saguaro is that it is a habitat within itself. That's right. Not only does it manage to live and thrive in the desert habitat, but just by being there, it provides food, water, and shelter to many different animals. Let me get my climbing gear out and some gloves to protect me from these sharp spines, and I'll meet you at the top. It's pretty brave. Look, there's a bunch of them. You already know that it hardly ever rains in the desert, but when it does, the saguaro cactus saves and stores huge quantities of water in its roots and its stems. The cactus saves the extra water and uses it to survive during those times when it's very dry and does not rain. So that would be one way that these have adapted to living in the desert where there's not very much rain. This is a cactus bloom. In the spring, white flowers grow on the saguaro. At night, when the desert cools down, these flowers open to show sweet nectar, which butterflies, bats, and birds feed on before the flowers close the next day when it once again becomes very hot. In the summer, red fruit begins to grow on the saguaro. Many animals eat the fruit of the cactus. And that's pretty cool. It's a food supply to animals in the desert, if they can get close enough to it without getting poked. This is the Gila woodpecker. The Gila pecks holes into the soft cactus with its beak to make a nest for its eggs. The Gila woodpecker is an omnivore. An omnivore is an animal that eats plants as well as other animals. Gilas feed on cactus fruit and berries, as well as insects that have invaded the saguaro. Thankfully, I brought a sandwich, so I won't have to join these Gilas for a buggy lunch. It's really way too hot for a regular rat like me to live here. I'm glad I brought my fan with me. Interestingly enough, birds like the Gila woodpecker can live in the desert habitat because their feathers help protect them from the hot desert sun by trapping cool air next to their skin. Still, most birds only go out to feed in the early morning or evening when it's cooler outside. From noon to late afternoon, many of these birds seek shelter in the holes that they have dug in a cactus or in other shady places. This is an elf owl. He's pretty cool. Here's another bird that makes its home in the saguaro cactus, the elf owl. The elf owl is the world's smallest owl. It's only 5 inches long. That's just a bit bigger than one of your hands. He's little. It moves into nests and has been abandoned by Gila woodpeckers. The elf owl, like most owls, is nocturnal, which means that it rests during the day and wakes at night to hunt for food. So when the woodpeckers are done using the holes they've created in the cactus, he'll move in once it's empty. The elf owl is a carnivore. A carnivore is an animal that eats only other animals, no plants. It uses its large eyes to hunt in the dark night for bugs that live in the desert. Most owls eat mice, and I'm sad to say rats, but I think I'm safe from the elf owl because I'm bigger than it is. Whoa! This is a desert cottontail. Oh, look, here comes a desert cottontail rabbit. Another animal that lives in the Sonoran Desert. The desert cottontail looks a little like the Arctic hare we saw in the tundra, but it has larger ears and longer back legs. So remember, the Arctic hare adapted to living in the tundra by having smaller ears that weren't as exposed or out in the open to the cold, and it had larger and wider back feet. Desert cottontail rabbits are herbivores. Herbivores are animals that eat only plants, no animals. The desert cottontail eats grass and even cacti. Ooh. Smaller animals like the desert cottontail always need to watch out for larger animals in the desert that might eat them. Many animals and plants are part of a cycle called the food chain. You will learn more about the food chain in the next read aloud. Coyotes, for instance, like to eat rabbits. In fact, there's a coyote coming this way, so let's stay up here and watch it. We learned about the food chain a little bit from Dr. Wellbody when we learned about all of our body systems. Here's the coyote. Coyotes are found all over the United States, including the Sonoran Desert. As you can see, the coyote has a light tan-colored coat to help reflect the sun's rays and to camouflage it. So when it camouflages it, it blends in with its surroundings so it can't be seen. Coyotes are carnivores like the elf owls. Coyotes have very good senses of smell, hearing, and vision, and they can run very fast, which means they are excellent hunters. They are also scavengers, which is an animal that eats meat and waste left by other animals. Coyotes live in dens, which they make by burrowing into the ground. I think this one has smelled something because he's just run off. Now I'm getting down from this cactus before another coyote comes along to make me its dinner. It seems like rats are on the menu everywhere I go. All right, so that was it for the Sonoran Desert. Now I have a few comprehension questions I will ask, and you can turn and talk with your child, or if you're doing this on your own, then just think about it for a minute and then we'll go over it. All right. What was the weather and temperature of the Sonoran Desert like? Remember, we already learned about the tundra, which was very, very cold. So what was the temperature and the weather like in the Sonoran Desert that we just learned about? We learned that it was dry, hot, and not much rain at all. Do many plants and animals live in the desert? We learned about some, but were there a bunch? There are not many plants and animals that live in the desert because it is hot and very dry. So a lot of animals could not survive there. If you were to give someone directions on how to prepare to spend time in the desert, what would you tell him or her to take with them for supplies? What are some things you could bring that would help protect you from the hot weather and it being very dry there? I think you might want to tell them to bring water, food, sunscreen, sunglasses, a hat to protect them from all that sun. How do animals find shelter in the desert? We learned a couple different ways. So we heard that some animals go underground in holes. They burrow down in the ground where it's cooler and where they can hide from predators. Or they make holes in the plants like the saguaro cactus that the elf owl and the woodpecker used. How is the saguaro cactus adapted to live in the desert? Brett said when it rains, it saves and stores a lot of water, and it can use that water during dry weather when it's not raining at all. So it saves up its own water inside itself for when it needs it. That's a way it's adapted to living in the desert. How have animals in the desert adapted to living there? Well, we learned that many of them only come out at night when it's cooler. And they make shelter underground. They make shelter inside of plants. They try and stay out of the extreme temperatures. Which animal did you learn about that's nocturnal, and what does nocturnal mean? We've heard this word before. What animal did they say was nocturnal? And what does nocturnal mean? I'll give you a hint. It was the elf owl was nocturnal. But what does nocturnal mean? Nocturnal means that he sleeps during the day and comes out at night. That's true for other owls as well. An important vocabulary word from this lesson was camouflage. In the read aloud we heard, the coyote has a light tan-colored coat to camouflage it. Now, sometimes when we think of camouflage, we think of the green and brown colors all mixed together, which is to help you blend in with the environment. But camouflage means, to camouflage something means to hide it against its natural surroundings or background. Often the color of the object or animal is similar to the background, which makes it hard for other animals to see. The Arctic hare's white coat serves as camouflage in the snowy Arctic tundra because there's snow everywhere, which is white, and he's white, so it's hard to see him. Some things, if I wanted to camouflage something, a white piece of paper, how would I camouflage that? I could camouflage that by placing it on a white floor. If I wanted to camouflage a black cat, I would camouflage him by placing it in front of a blackboard. Since they're both black, it would be hard to see. If I wanted to camouflage an Arctic hare, I would camouflage him by placing him on a snowy surface, since he's white and the snow is white. If I wanted to camouflage a yellow pencil, I could camouflage that by placing it in a vase of yellow flowers. All right, that is it for today. Tomorrow, we are going to learn about animals of the East African savanna habitat. Looking forward to that. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much.